this best practice forum on innovation strategies to transform your E&C program. My name is Ernie Broughton. I'm a senior advisor with the Ethics and Compliance Initiative, and we're really excited that you're here. I am going to introduce our panelists in just a moment, and then we'll get started. I do want you to chat in where you're from. Just open up your chat. And by the way, as you have questions, feel free to chat them in. And yeah, Karsten got us started there, New York City. I'm actually based in San Antonio, Texas. And we wanted to get you chatting in because this is going to be a very interactive program. You know, when we talk about innovation, innovation is an engagement activity. It's not a spectator sport. And so we're really excited that that we have had Karsten and our different panelists put together a very interactive program that you'll be able to participate in. You'll have the option to do that. And so this is going to be a little different than a lot of the programs you participate in. This is going to be very interactive. It's going to be somewhat organic. So we have a starting point and then we have an ending point. But between there, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen. And so we really appreciate you kind of rolling with us on that. We have Karsten Toms, who is a senior advisor with the ECI and a consultant with Imagence, LLC. And we also have joining Karsten is Jonathan White, who is a lean consultant and a Miro expert, because we're going to be using a collaborative tool here. That's very important in a remote environment to be able to use collaboration tools. And so we're really excited to have Jonathan with us. We also will have Tom Fox momentarily, who is the founder of the Compliance Podcast Network. Everybody knows who Tom is. And then we have some guest practitioners. We have Suzanne Milton, who is the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. We also have Alicia Olmstead, who is a global ethics and compliance consultant with Dell. And we have Hema Ramradan Lomax, who is a senior corporate counsel, integrity and compliance with Snapchat. And so we're very excited that you all are here. And without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Karsten?
Yes, sure. Yeah, also warm welcome from me to everyone. So let's tell you a little bit about what our value proposition here today is for you, what you will take away from today's meeting, hopefully. We will introduce some concepts and methods and tools for innovation that hopefully you will find valuable in driving your program forward. And we will also introduce a tool. Ernie just mentioned it. We'll be using Miro, which is a virtual whiteboard collaboration tool. It works great in a remote setting. It works, but you can also actually use it in an in-person setting and in a hybrid setting to collaborate with your team, with your stakeholders, with your ambassadors of your program, or what have you. So you'll get to know that. And we will try to keep our, conceptual. Ernie knows that we both enjoy talking a lot about ideas and concepts. But today, actually, we will try to limit kind of an abstract theoretical conversation and really pursue the topics of innovation in a very applied manner. And we'll do so by trying to design an ambassador conference. So something that I think is a valuable component of any ethics and compliance program. So those are the three things that we hope you will come away with today. All right, let's go to the next slide. And I hope that Tom will be able to chime in here, because this is really something that he feels very strongly about, and I share that. But I'll go ahead and give it a first stab. So why is innovation an interesting topic for ethics and compliance practitioners? Well, we can add another training, another policy, another tool to our program. But one of the, well, as I see it, one of the big innovation challenges that we face still is creating user engagement with our tools, with our codes of conduct, with our trainings, with our websites. You know, when we put these tools out there, they can only be effective to the extent that our employees, our colleagues make use of these. And with engagement, I mean pretty much the same thing that that web design companies or web companies, e-commerce understands in these terms. You know, I'm interested in, you know, if people sit in a training and we give them options to interact, to click on something, are they making use of these options? When we send an email out, a communication piece, do people click on it? Do they open the message? Do they read it? Do they maybe go to the resources that the communication references, such as an online code or something else, or reporting system? When people go on a reporting website, you know, what is the conversion rate? How many people that go there with the intent to potentially report something actually then take the next step and report it? So that's the kind of user engagement that is really relevant for making our programs effective. And there is a huge opportunity here to learn from what is happening in business. There are some examples here very quickly. You know, how is innovation changing in the business world? Lego is a very interesting story. Lego has a system called Lego Ideas. It's a website, you can all visit it. And their users, Lego fans, kids, adults, people of any age, can submit their ideas for a new Lego set. For example, what you see here, you know, women who have made huge contributions to what is it called, Ernie? You know, exploration in space. So once you have submitted something there, then those individuals will activate their social network and will ask people to vote for their idea, because once they read 10,000 endorsements, their product idea will be considered for production. So now Lego has effectively activated their users to become their brand ambassadors, their marketers. You know, if something goes on the shelf, it gets sold, then these users get a cut. They get a cut of the revenue. And Airbnb is changing the way that users are being involved in an innovation project. You know, now you and I, we can all go into the hospitality business. We are not only as consumers, but as producers, as prosumers, as it is sometimes called. Apple phones are so successful because they're really designed around users' needs. The interface is very intuitive. This is not by accident. It is because there is a design process, a design thinking process behind it that really brings the user, the consumer, into the design of these products. And things are increasingly openly designed. That means the consumer is actually invited to finish the design of the product. Vans is an interesting example. You can draw a picture at home, and then you can upload it on a Vans website, and Vans will print it on the canvas of the shoe. So now you've become the designer of a unit of one, right? So personalization is a very important trend. So we see a lot of these interesting approaches to generating user engagement, very powerful. Users become highly loyal. They also are willing to pay a premium for the product that they have helped to finish, and they become brand ambassadors. So that is really deep engagement, and it's my belief, and a lot of my time I spent thinking and applying these ideas to figure out how we can deepen engage and create positive engagement. How can we make employees brand ambassadors for our ethics and compliance program? So just some introductory remarks here around the need of today's topic, which is innovation. With that, let's move on. Okay, so we have actually tried this. Together with ECI, I was part of a project to design a code of conduct for Enscape, which is a small but very fast-growing tech company. And so we used a lot of the tools that you will experience in a moment to design an ethics and compliance solution, in this case, a code of conduct. And I believe it has yielded a number of very interesting ideas. I've mentioned personalization, for instance. So there are you know, personalized strategies that users, readers of the code are invited to to try out in figuring out strategies to address, for example, ethical situations. Anyway, so if you have an interest in this, you can certainly email me and I'm happy to share a copy with you. So we've tested it, it can really generate value. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And here you can see a little bit how John is moving around the board. And now we are moving into a tutorial, and I'll hand it over to John so that, you know, all of us have the most important basic tools that will allow us to use Miro. Take it away, John.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to paste a link into the Zoom chat. And for anyone who wants to join us on this Miro board, there's just a few little quick bits of information we want to share with you on how to use it. It is fairly intuitive, but it's also okay if you don't want to try, if you want to just keep watching the screen share in the Zoom or contribute your thoughts and ideas via the Zoom chat, we'll make sure those make it into our workspace. So there, I've just put into the chat a link. If you click that, it should open in a browser. You don't need to create a new account, even if it asks you to. You can just say, no, you're coming in as a guest of ours, and you're more than welcome to do so. We'll just give folks a couple of seconds here to join the space. And once you get into the board, don't worry about touching anything or moving around just yet. We're going to pull you. One of the cool features of Miro is that I can bring you to where I am on the board. So I'm going to do that right now. It's going to bring you down, and everyone should be looking in their Miro screen at moving on the whiteboard, the little instructions we've got here. So the first thing I want to let you know is that on the left hand of your Miro interface, there's a toolbar. And at the very top of that toolbar, there's a mouse pointer icon, and it should be blue by default. And that's what you want. That means your controls are activated, and you'll be able to select and move around some of the sticky notes that we have set up for you in just a second. The other thing you're going to want to know is that you can move your view around on the Miro board simply by right-clicking. If you have a mouse with a right-click button, you can right-click and hold and move the screen around, and you'll see it just kind of drags your view a little bit, and your cursor turns into a hand. Now, there's another way that you can turn your cursor into a hand, and that is just by simply holding the space bar. So if you do that on your Miro interface and hold the space bar, you'll see your pointer becomes a hand. And you might also notice all of the different icon pointers that are flying around. Some have people's names, some have visiting designer. That's just all of us sharing time and collaborating in this space, which is the most powerful part of Miro. So hopefully you can quickly master clicking and selecting things and moving your view, and we'll test you in just a second on that. We have a fun little activity. Let me move on to the next piece of information, and I'll just go here, and I will once again bring everybody to me on the board so you can all see what I see. So the other part of Miro is that since it's an infinite workspace, that means we're zoomed in now, but we could easily zoom out or zoom in closer if we wanted to. And there are 4 ways that you do that. My preferred way is I have a wheel on my mouse, and if I roll that wheel, I'll zoom my view in and out. That's the easiest way. The next thing you can do is if you have a touch screen, you can pinch on it. If you have a laptop or you're on another device that has a touch screen, same principles apply with zooming and unzooming by pinching and unpinching your fingers. You can use the plus or minus keys on your keyboard, which sometimes by default is just the quickest and easiest way to get your head wrapped around. And then in the very bottom right of the Miro interface, you'll see a zoomed percentage and a couple of a plus and minus symbol. You can use that to zoom in and out as well. So lots of ways to get around and to make sure that you're looking at what you want to be looking at. So let's try it out, shall we? Let's do something a little fun here. And so I'm just going to stop my screen share for 1 second here so everyone can get focused onto their Miro activity. I'm just going to make sure that I've repasted the Miro link in the chat in case anyone has joined in the last 5 seconds while I've been talking. And I'm once again just going to bring everybody to this activity on the Miro board. You'll see on the left of this frame a few instructions on how to select a sticky note by clicking it. Once you've clicked it, you can drag it around all over the board. You can use the little white boxes in the corners to resize. And what we'd like you to do here is just grab a sticky note. It doesn't matter which color for right now, and drag it into the quadrant, the quarter for when your birthday is. So if you're January, February, March, put your name and a little hello message and a sticky in the Q1 box. And see, people are making big stickies all over the place, that's not a problem. That's part of the reason I am here, because undoubtedly things happen in Miro that we maybe didn't want to do. So let me tell you another little quick key is that you can hit Control Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac on your keyboard, and that will undo the last thing you did, much like any other word processing or other program that you've got. So go ahead, grab that sticky, drag it into the quadrant to where your birthday is in the year, write your name or write a little hello message, and have a little bit of fun with it. That's what we're here for, partially, is some fun and some good thinking. You're all doing great. If anyone does have any issues or anything like that, if they're not quite sure what's going on, you can raise your hand in Zoom and I can try and help you out. And like I said, if it's just too frustrating, don't worry about it. You can just close the window on the Miro board, come back and start to watch our Zoom share again, which I'll reactivate here in just a second as we move into the next activity. But it looks like most people are getting along well, and that's what we like to see. So I see Valerie has raised her hand. You having some issues, Valerie? Can I ask her to unmute? Or maybe type it into the chat would be the better way to go. I'm not sure if we can get unmuted. Okay. So just as I try to help Valerie, don't want to hold up the show or anything. If we want to progress now to the next activity, the next warm up, I'm going to bring everybody over here. And here we've got some more stickies on the left and on the right, and 2 questions in here. So the first question, what are 3 inventions that improve your everyday life? Coffee, okay, or who or what, in terms of people, ideas, concepts, books, etc., has helped you to innovate your work? So if you have a response under either of those questions, just go ahead and grab a sticky, drag it into the white space under the question you're answering. And that is that.
Do I get points for putting down Miro, John?
Yes, absolutely. Miro has been the best thing I've found in the last 10 years. It's great. Nice. Great to see all this feedback come in. It's part of the fun of using Miro when you see everyone's cursors going around. If you did find the other individuals' cursors flying around too distracting for you, you can turn those off. In the top right corner of your Miro interface, you'll see some circle icons with letters, or you might see my funny animated guy. That's my user icon. Just to the left of that is a little party favor that's blowing out some confetti. And then just to the left of that is an arrow that's pointing up and to the left with a couple of small lines above it. And that is the button that you can hit to turn off your collaborators' cursors. Or I highly recommend, once you've turned them off, just for a second, turn them back on. And when you watch all those cursors explode onto the screen, it really makes you feel like you're part of an engaged group. But on or off, it's completely your choice. Things will continue to happen on the Miro board. And Carson, I don't know if you wanted to get into some of this feedback here, talk about some of the results at all, or?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I won't be able to summarize it, but I see a lot of fun stuff. So, you know, obviously a lot of the ideas are exactly in the spirit of today's exercise. I see UX, meaning user experience is, you know, and I see, okay, who has helped us innovate users? I see my team, Miro is up there, kids I see. So, you know, it's innovation is a lot about listening and conversation, and the things that come out of conversation. You know, there's this symbiotic ideas that none of us can come up with on our own, but they really emerge out of. So that's something that I'm picking up and seeing right now, and I find that very beautiful.
I agree.
I mean, there are some practical things. Dishwasher. Okay, I'll confess, I put in VWC or VC. I don't know what's the English term here. very mundane daily things, of course, apps, computers, cell phones, that's all amazing stuff. Ernie, any observations on your part?
No, I'm just amazed at how quickly everybody has adapted to this. I am kind of curious if people have experience using Miro prior to this.
Yeah, maybe folks could type in the Zoom chat if they have used Miro in the past, and that's why you're so darn good at it.
Yeah. No, and let me, while people are getting ready, let me just amplify something that you said, John. If anybody is experiencing challenges right now with the tool, then please, let us know. You use the chat. I think it would also be nice if anybody came on mic, because I'm sure you're not the only one. There might be others benefiting from your the difficulties you may be experiencing and the solutions that we can provide. So make this as interactive as possible, both in terms of your ideas that you're sharing, but we want this to be a learning experience as much as possible. This is a great tool, and hopefully you come away and say, I know a little better how to use this. That's part of the takeaway that we want to accomplish here today.
You might note, if you've been in meetings before where people put a bunch of stickies on sticky notes and put them on the wall, usually one of the next activities you go through is affinity charting, where you group the similar comments together and form clusters. And well, usually that was on a facilitator in a big session to do. Sometimes they would crowdsource, but Miro opens it up for crowdsourcing all the time. And so it's amazing how quickly you can move through that kind of activity with many hands taking the contribution there. So it's a great tool to enable teams to have these great conversations.
Yep. And I also want to say that when I used this tool for the first time, I felt really overwhelmed, and I full of anxiety and like, how does this work? And this is, if any of you is experiencing something similar, that's completely normal. But let me reassure you, I got over the bump really quick. Once I spent a little bit of time with it, I gave it a second, a third try, things started working out for me. And then the fun starts. So if for those who have that struggle right now, stick with it, please. You'll be rewarded. Okay, so I think this is wonderful stuff, and I think we can move on to we're ready, right, for the to move into our into our design challenge.
Do it.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead, and why don't you keep pulling us through the slides, John? That will allow me to focus a little bit more on the message. Okay, so today's design challenge is, as I mentioned, creating an ethics ambassador conference. Most of you have heard about this idea, but so often companies, they have a small core team, but then they need support in their business units, people who help them make sure the program is alive locally, that it's visible to their employees, that people locally have somebody to contact, to talk to. So some companies set up an ambassadors program or a ethics representatives program. It comes in different names sometimes, but this is what this is. So we have a fictitious company here. We call it Smart Farm. It's in the business of selling hardware, software, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence type of components that urban DIY enthusiasts can use to build their indoor in-apartment gardening systems. It's a company with about 5,000 employees dispersed around 10 countries and with 20 investors. And so this company has organized or has brought together ethics and compliance ambassadors on an annual basis, but they feel the format has become a little formulaic, stale, and frankly a little bit boring. So now today, all of us are charged with designing a conference that motivates ambassadors in their role and empowers them to be successful in what we hope them to do. All right. So that's the setup. That's the exercise. And this is where our co-panelists, Suzanne and Hema and Alicia will play the main part. It's again wonderful to have you. Thank you for volunteering for this exercise. Quick, fairly well-known rules of successful ideation. First one is try to separate ideation from evaluation. Okay, so separate the creation of ideas from evaluating ideas, figuring out which ones are best, right? So our creative minds work best when we put the evaluation to the side for a little bit. We'll come back to that later. So defer judgment. Second one, be imaginative, give yourself permission to think the unthinkable, to be bold, to break through, your comfort zone, go out there. You don't own the ideas that you put on the board today that you share with others. Try to separate your person from the ideas. Also try to separate the ideas of other people from that person. This helps us create that safe space in which really groundbreaking new ideas can come up. Don't sort of sanction moderate yourself too much. And then also use each other's ideas, build on each other's ideas. If you see somebody else come up with an idea, maybe that will launch you to think, how do you call it, Ernie? And also, right? That's the kind of thinking.
Yes, and.
Yes, and thank you. That's the type of thinking we're looking for, and try to go for quantity and diversity of ideas. Often during the first 3 ideas that we come up with are easy, they're conventional. It's when we dig deeper, when we stay with it, we lean into that stretch, so to speak, for those of you who do yoga. That is where, where often the original ideas come from. All right, and I think with that enough said about how to ideate, let's actually ideate. And we will start with with what's called an empathy map. That is one of the many potential tools in the toolbox of designers, of innovators, very commonly used. And the purpose of this exercise is twofold. Number one is really, surface what we know or the assumptions that we have about the people who will be using the solution that we are creating. But the second aspect is just to rewire our mind. And as we think about solutions, as we think about innovative ideas, to think about them through the eyes of the user, right? To really take an empathetic stance, because that is really a huge opportunity to come up with ideas that are new, that are novel, and most of all, that are valuable to the end user. And that will, of course, then promote user engagement, user support. All right, and we start the empathy map journey on the top left corner, the gray field. So first we want to determine who is our user. Let me quickly say something about the stickies that you see around, and encourage our fishbowl participants to get going. You're already doing it, keep going. And let me just say a word for everyone else about the stickies that you see. There are yellow stickies. Those are for Alicia, Hema, and Suzanne. But maybe other people in our meeting today, they want to give it a try, and you're welcome to do so. And for that purpose, we've put up the green stickies. So if you have an idea, a thought, and you want to try this out, please grab a green sticky and double click into it. Add your idea on the sticky. That's what these green ones are for. And then we will use John and I will use the blue stickies later when we put titles to stickies that we've grouped together because they relate to the same idea, the same theme, okay? So this explains the color coding of the stickies. And we'll give this about, we are now on the top. I think we've identified who the users for whom we are designing. Well, of course, it is the people in our subsidiaries who act in the role of an ethics ambassador. And let's move on to the second field now, which is white on the top right corner. And let's now for a moment think about the types of responsibilities that ambassadors have. What do we expect and what do we want them to do? What kind of support do we need of them? So please share your ideas about that. And I'm very happy to see a few green stickies on the board. So thank you for members of the, thank you all participants who are trying this out. But yeah, as you can see, fairly quickly the board populates with ideas. So this shows you, I mean, you could be sitting at home and trying this out, or you could sit at your desk, or any individual could, and trying to get going, and it can take time. So this type of group ideation can, if you structure it well, it can go really well, and it can give really a very quickly a universe of perspectives, of ideas that really help you understand what you're trying to accomplish. Anyway, Ernie, any thoughts from your end at this time?
No, I think that I think people are really getting the hang of this, and I feel like the main value of this is people plugging into the mind of their users and seeing what their experience is like, as you and I talked about, getting inside their skin, right?
That's correct. What do you see in the chat, by the way? Are there any questions or thoughts right now?
Yeah. From let me check and see what we have here.
Karsten, am I the only one that feels competitive and wants to get as many down as possible?
Say that again. I didn't.
Am I the only one that feels a bit competitive and trying to do it as fast as possible?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. You can take a competitive attitude to this. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as it stays fun and there's no foul play, I'm all for it.
Everybody seems to be having a good time with this.
Yeah, so maybe let's move on. Let's make sure all our fish bowlers are now in the third step of the empathy map, which is the pink one on the right.
I would say that, one of the things is as people are actually doing this, even though we're doing this for to illustrate, I think there are opportunities for the facilitator, whoever that is, to really drill down in here and to ask questions of people. Maybe as they go through and analyze this, once everybody has put their information on there.
Yeah.
For example, there might be they don't have enough time, or they're busy with their day jobs. How common is that problem? And describe it, admire the problem a little bit to make sure that we all are kind of getting some shared meaning around that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great point, Ernie. A lot of the exercises we do in Miro really harness design thinking, and it's not just for software development anymore. People are using it to solve problems, and by diverging the group and doing independent brainstorm and thinking, we come up with all these amazing ideas, and then we converge and we come together as a team and we start deciding what are the biggest problems here. Let's agree and let's get those extra details. And then let's shift into the solutioning for these problems. And again, we'll diverge to come up with as many solutions and then converge and pick the best ones. It's very powerful when you use it in this format in combination with Miro.
Yeah, and yeah, I also, with regard to the timing issue, there are so many ways to go through an exercise and to structure it. So today here, we are all synchronously, as it is now being called, together in the same time, looking at the same screen. But we could have also said, Alicia, please, when you have a moment in your daily schedule, please go on the board and add your ideas to this empathy map. And you might be doing this from San Francisco at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and John might go to the board from Vancouver. at I don't know, 8 a.m. in the morning. It's a very free tool, and it allows you to do things very, to accommodate different needs and schedules. So that's another good thing to know about using Miro, that it can be used asynchronously.
Preston, it's also so efficient. I mean, I imagine doing this brainstorming orally in a meeting, and it could take us hours to say what they think, people to respond and engage. But here, we get it all down, and there's plenty of and what else we can do when we've got it on the board. I love that about this.
That's right.
And what I like about it is that once you put the sticky down, no one knows that it was yours. So you can really be anonymous in what you're saying as long as nobody saw you write that down there.
I'm so grateful for that comment, because, and you have the option, if there's also a way to set it up so that everybody's name is visible. But I do love the anonymous feature, and usually that's what I go with, because it does create this safe space, right? Even in voting, that's also later, there'll be an invitation for people to vote on ideas, and I think it skews the results it may skew the results if people know, my vote is visible. So yeah, that is a very nice feature to have, and it allows you to also address potentially difficult topics and to surface opinion really from every participant on issues that they may not be comfortable sharing in person when everybody knows it's them who is saying that. So again,
I'd like to add to this too, Karsten, from a practical standpoint in design sessions. Very often the people who are in design sessions will, if there aren't users who are engaged in the design session, they'll actually go out and interview people to get their experience and bring that information back. So this is not something that in a real setting that you would just dream up based on what you have observed. You actually will talk to people. You'll go out where they work, and that's part of empathy mapping.
That's again such an important comment. Yes, so empathy mapping is part of the user research phase in a design project, but you really so good user design is not just about empathy for the user or the designer trying to get into the user's heads. That's important, but ideally you want to bring the user into the design process also. So there are a variety of ways of doing that. One is if you do this exercise with 10 people, maybe you invite and you might do it to, you might invite 3 ambassadors or maybe 5 ambassadors to be half of the group. So that will help you get that deeper intimacy with the user. Or as you say, before you go and populate and kind of synthesize and summarize your insights about, you go out, you do a user interview, you sit down with the ambassadors, you say, how do you understand your role? What is it that you, going here to the purple the purple field on the right side, what is it that you see or hear in your organization and that is valuable in your role, or that is valuable for us as the corporate ethics and compliance program? So you sit down with them, you interview them, you collect their input. So I've gotten a little bit off track here, but I'm happy, it's always wonderful to see how people will do what they need to do without too much hand-wringing or hard-fisted guidance. But yeah, so let's maybe just for all the participants, let's just continue to walk through the empathy map. So you see there is the purple field that I just mentioned. So often you ask people, so what do you see or hear that is relevant for the question in hand? In this case, for the role, the responsibilities of the ambassador, what kind of information, what kind of, what do they have of value for their role of the program, right? And obviously what we see here, they hear about what's going on in the company. They know maybe about the risks in their business units. They know the ethical compliance issues that may come up. So that's of course of value. So then we move on to to the bottom blue field, what do ambassadors say about their role, right? Maybe, you know, you've past experience, they've talked to you, and there's valuable information in that. Then the next field is what do ambassadors do in their role? What do they excel at? What do they struggle with? What are they capable of? What else may they be capable of doing that are not currently doing, right? What do they want or enjoy doing? These types of questions. So these are more or less observable facts or pieces of knowledge. And then with that, we move inside the head, which is the circle in the center of this screen. And we ask ourselves, so what are some pains? What are some pain points, fears, frustrations that they experience in their role? And also the gains, what are their wants, their needs, their hopes, right? As they relate to their ambassador role. Maybe they see it as an opportunity to increase their employability, to be promoted, to have a more senior role in their company, what have you. So, all right, John.
I think that, you know, some of the things,
Ernie,
if you don't mind me mentioning here, this exercise, as you can imagine, what you're doing here is you're reverse engineering into the content of the conference. Mm-hmm. You know, because once you know what people's pains are, their gains, what they want out of this, what they struggle with, then you can really design the conference content in a way that meets those needs. And that's different from the way we normally develop these.
Ernie, what strikes me is the curiosity behind the questions you're asking as well. I love that we're being curious and we're asking open coaching questions and then trying to answer them ourselves. I think that's critical. I don't want to underestimate the work that's been put into creating the empathy map itself and the questions you've come up with to make us do exactly what you just said, be thoughtful about the content. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. And I just love that word curiosity. And having everybody come in to this from a standpoint of curiosity takes them out of the judgment role. And the judgment role is what kills a lot of great ideas before they even get off the ground.
And the naysaying too, right? There's no naysaying here. It's open, just open flow. Right. I love it.
So yes and conversation, not the but no. Okay.
Yeah. Although I want to say, yes, participants to each other, they don't criticize during this stage. However, we do invite also the tough input. You know, it's not a kumbaya, only positive things on the screen. You can also talk about the struggles, the fears, the problems, the difficulties that people have. You can say, you know, I think an ambassador conference, maybe people don't want it. You know, we shouldn't do it. That's not my opinion, but you want to create an environment where all thoughts are being allowed, so to speak. So I wonder, John, what do you think? Should we demonstrate a little bit the grouping part right now? Maybe not for all quadrants. It's important to understand that, you know, to really get the value out of this, you want to sit with it, not rush, but really look at the empathy map and because after you're done, you will be amazed at how much deeper your understanding of users has become. Based on a simple exercise like that. That's at least my experience each time I do this or a similar exercise. But John, should we focus on one field and maybe put some grouping labels there, blue stickies?
Just looking for a good one. I mean, we have such a lot of ideas. I'm trying to look for one that has some obvious ones we can group together, but
why don't we stay in the center, the pains and the gains? Maybe we see some themes. We will come up with some themes there.
Sure, okay? Sure. Yeah, sure. So it looks like we have time is kind of a big one here. We have 3 comments related to time. So we can group these together. Have a day job, that's snuck in there. That's kind of related to time, is it?
Yep, I think so.
Very good.
Pressure to compete.
I'd say the other items contained within the pains are not in unique groups, but you know what, that's okay, because we know for sure that there's one common thread of thinking among all the comments, that people having too little time or not enough time to dedicate is one of the bigger pains that folks will feel. So that's a good thing. When you only have one grouping, that means that there's some commonality among it, and that's one of the things we would likely focus on. Yeah.
No, exactly.
On the gains,
go ahead.
Sorry, on the gains, we got pressure to compete and will our company survive? I would view those as pretty linked. Mm-hmm. The other three, recognition, promotion, and making an impact. Not unrelated, but not exactly all related together. So again, I'd say the pressure to compete and will our company survive? What would we call that cluster?
I honestly, I struggle right now a little bit with relating that to the gains side. But
sounds like it's more of a pain.
But the link might be there. I just don't see it. But we can sit with that. That's okay. We don't. That doesn't need to be resolved right now. Also, let me thanks, John. I think the main point here was to illustrate what you would be doing next with this exercise, so that you go look through all the stickies and you try to identify common themes. I personally like it to change the color, and for each theme create one sticky that is blue, or it's any other unique color, and that will then kind of help you quickly synthesize what's on your canvas. Ernie, is this a good idea maybe to hear from our fish bowlers, how they're doing right now?
Yeah, let's do. Great idea.
I was just so excited to see all of these other ideas that the others were coming up with that I hadn't thought of. So which is the whole reason for doing something like this. So it's just working even in a hypothetical situation. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's such a spark to see other ideas. It's like Carson was saying, the more ideas you see, the more triggers in your mind. So they definitely build on each other, and there's such a diversity of perspectives in the space right now. And the tool just lets you capitalize on that.
Yeah, I'm going to echo on that. I mean, I always say your superpower is knowing what you don't know, and this really helps with that, because it's a bit of a relief. You don't have to be the one that knows everything. You're garnering all of the ideas, and together now the team knows all of this. That's very, very powerful. So thank you.
No, those are great points, and no, I think there's so many collateral benefits, right? Not, as you say, not only do you no longer have to shoulder the responsibility for finding all the answers on your own, but having this exercise in and of itself really helps you create those connections with your stakeholders. And in this case, if you bring in, for instance, ambassadors into designing an ambassador conference, you really deepen the relationship with them, right? By building something together, by collaborating together. That's really how one important mechanism for building trust, for building, you give them the confidence that it's not just about you shoving down a program down their throats, excuse the crude language, but it's you are sensitive to their needs, right? So there's a whole host of positive things that come out of that. So that's really part of the magic and the beauty, which is hard to summarize and to describe, but it's there.
Karsten, another thing that came to mind as I was looking at these, when you were having the grouping of the like things together to identify what some of the bigger themes were that were coming out, I think doing that through this kind of an exercise is really helpful, especially if you have some people on your team that have really strong personalities, because they may try to dominate with what they think is the direction that things should go. But then you have here all of the data here might point to a totally different direction. And I think that helps to convince or to give evidence of why, the reasoning behind why you should go in a different direction.
No, Alicia, again, I love this observation. This is a whole, I mean, you remove this recurring problem that you always have some people who are dominant in a conversation, right? And some are silent. And here, you know, within a limited time space, you give everyone the opportunity to express their ideas and to make them part of the equation. It's a great, you know, diversity and inclusion tool in that sense, in my view. You know, an organization that practices this kind of engagement, I think, will make huge progress towards creating a work environment where really every voice is welcome, is heard, is encouraged, is empowered. So that's such a huge point. I'm grateful for that, Alicia. How are we doing on time, Ernie?
I think we should move on to the next exercise.
Yep.
And Tom may be in. I just got a note from him. I'm not sure. Tom, can you say hi?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, that's great. Sure can. Okay, welcome. Tom Fox, everybody. One thing about innovation is persistence is essential. And thank you for modeling that, Tom. Yeah. I am getting some feedback though.
Yeah, okay, John, take us to the next exercise, please.
Got it. Okay, I brought everybody over to this one.
All right, so now we have, you know, we moved into the head of the user, so to speak, and now we will do an exercise called reverse brainstorming. Everybody is familiar with the idea of brainstorming, very basic. We want to generate a lot of ideas, but we're not going to first try to come up with solutions. Instead, we will try to come up with bad solutions. But before we do that, please, participants, tell me a little bit about what goes into planning a conference. You know, what are important aspects to consider? You know, maybe there are 5 or 8 or 10 different aspects, and we'll use those then in a moment to brainstorm instead to bad solutions for each of these aspects. So I see time zone. I see agenda. I assume that's about what topics are on the agenda, what we'll be talking about. How can we make it engaging? And again, there are a few screen stickies here for anybody participating who's not a fishbowler, so to speak. Feel free to grab one, add your thoughts and ideas. So I see tech, so that could be apps maybe, or any kind of software that we can use. That's of course of increasing relevance as we do more and more of these things online. Internal risk trends I see, so that, yeah. And so John, maybe we can group kind of hierarchically, like from top to bottom, the topics.
Okay.
And yeah, they will serve as a guide later for the next step. Okay, we really have a lot of stuff right now. So why don't we stop brainstorming on this for now in a real world experience or workshop? I would let this run longer. But yeah, so first row is technology, great. Location, venue is the next row.
There's a cluster here around the topics being relevant, having a good agenda.
Correct. So I'll call this agenda. I'll make that blue. All right, for this line item.
Okay, engagement.
Engagement is a good one. And who speaks? I see a speaker. Maybe I'll put that under location as a line item. Social time. I think I might put that together with
maybe the agenda.
Okay. Yep. I was thinking of agenda more as relevant topics.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'll use social time. I add this to engage, make it engaging. So this is more about like, how do we create interactivity? How do we allow for people to improve their social ties, their networks in the company with each other? That's a little bit how I would read it for now. Yeah, it's getting a little crowded there. Okay. I see. I love our participants. They're already on to step 2. Wonderful. You know, I'm a huge fan of. I talk about agency so much, right? People, we have a desire to shape our lives, to shape our life circumstances, to be part of creating the world around us, and this is such a beautiful illustration of this. So wonderful, yeah. So please go ahead with anybody who wants to chime in here. Step number 2, what would make an investor conference boring, unproductive, and what's the other word here? It's hidden for me. Disengaging. Thank you, Ernie.
I love this section because many of us wait for feedback forms, then do lessons learned if we're lucky afterwards, like a post-mortem. But this is what I like to call a pre-mortem, which is what could go wrong. And if we think about what could go wrong, then we can think about how to avoid it going wrong. So I really appreciated this section as you introduced it.
Good.
Well, and people typically have a lot of fun with this, you know, because it's amazing how all of us have been in the most boring conferences and meetings possible. And so people may not know what they want to do, but they definitely know what they don't want to do.
Yeah, absolute good point. I also think it gives us permission, you know, we could ask the question, oh, in the last event that you designed, what worked out badly, right? But often that's not a stimulating question because we hesitate to, you know, so much dwell on the things that we've done poorly. And of course, all of us have at some point. But this here really creates a nice environment to really think, okay, how can we blow up an event? How can we really make it the worst possible? And this is not the only thing that should go into innovation, but I think it is a powerful step. Yeah. All right, we have great stuff here. Let's stay with that or leave it at that and move on to step number 3. So now we flip it. Now we reverse it. We think about what would make an investor conference engaging and productive, and we use the ideas from step 2 and just flip them to their opposite. So as an example, what do we see come up here? A good flow for the event.
Too much sitting. Have opportunities for people to get up and do some brain walking. Brain walk, I love that.
Yeah, Tom, if you can hear us, chime in with any observations you have about what you see going on here, any thoughts, or if you see questions from our participants in the chat room, any of your input. People are, of course, dying to hear from the voice of compliance, Tom Fox, the man himself.
Can you hear me, Karsten?
I can, yes.
Karsten, what these last 2 steps have really driven home the point I was going to try and make with my opening remarks that you made with your series last summer and last fall on design thinking, which is this can drive engagement. And this is a fabulous way to drive engagement. And you posit that greater engagement means greater effectiveness. And I really can't think of a better visual representation of that than what I'm seeing on the screen now. And I would ask everyone to consider not simply what you and I, we, the compliance profession or compliance professionals could come up with in this exercise, but really what your stakeholders, whether that be your employees, whether that be customers, whether that be third parties, whether that be someone outside your organization, and how you might use this to really drive engagement. And so it ties really what to the point I wanted to emphasize. We ask about effectiveness and we strive for effectiveness. And what Carson has really driven home to me is engagement can be a key component of effectiveness. And that's really what I'm seeing literally in front of my eyes.
Thank you for that, Tom. And I want to give, yeah, so I'm so excited. I've known Ernie for a long time. I've known him as a curator of great ideas and a convener of great conversations. And last year, I had the fortune to finally, after being a follower of Tom's work and all the things that he does to highlight great ideas and to stimulate meaningful conversation among ethics and compliance professionals, to work together, to do a podcast together. We have that later in the resource part of the presentation. By the way, all of you will get a copy of this board in all its beauty, and that will be included in there. No, but I just want to highlight that it was Tom Fox who, I believe, to my knowledge, was the first to bring the topic of design thinking and innovation into the conversation for the compliance crowd with an article I believe you wrote in 2016, was it? And it's also, I have referenced it in the resources section. And I encourage you to give it, it's a quick read, but it really opens the door into a new way of approaching program engagement with employees.
I really like these ideas, I mean, and ideally what you would do after going through this brainstorming is then you kind of come back and process the content, spend more time on that. And that way the group comes to some consensus about maybe what things are most important. Alternatively, Carson's going to talk to you about a voting process too, and, which is a good way of kind of narrowing down the ideas to what's most important.
Sure. So why don't we go there right now? Because I think it would be nice to have time for discussion at the end. Is that okay, Ernie?
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Maybe, John, I see you've done a little bit of grouping there. Can you help us a little bit see the big picture here? And then we go to dot voting.
Yeah, so one of the bigger clusters is interactivity, brainstorming, and idea sharing. That's one of the big things. And if I could spell right, that would be amazing as well. Okay, we had some other, and this is a common thread through a couple of different categories, is tasty snacks and beverages. That's always a good way to pull me into a conference, just give me good food. We have the flow, keep the flow moving, co-creation of the agenda.
I love that.
Agenda. There was another one that had only a few bits, but I can tell you from my own experiences that I would push hard for this one is authentic storytelling or day in the life stories. Those things always catch my attention in conferences, and I appreciate when other people do it. So,
yeah, can I make a note here too? As though I'm kind of advocating for ideas here, the networking time is really critical because a lot of our ethics ambassadors feel isolated. This is where we begin to go back to what is the experience of the ambassadors in the empathy mapping. And if people feel isolated, well, then that means that this is a great opportunity to connect people with one another and to use each other as resources and to build a sense of belongingness and pride in terms of being a part of this program.
I like that. That's so critical. I think building community, being embedded in supportive and caring relationships, caring for other, being cared for, that, you know, science on motivation shows that that is an incredibly important part. It's a very important human need. So I think that needs to be a focus of any gathering of this type. One thing that I haven't put on the board because I'm a little bit distracted with talking is the idea to think of the ambassador not just as a consumer of your conference, but think of them as a co-producer. Consider what they know that they can contribute, you know, create opportunities for them to build something. Let's say do risk assessment exercise where you say, you know, please, each of you, you know, come up with some thoughts on what the key risks are, what are the new emerging risks, what are the current risks, what risk may have lessened over the last year or two. Then aggregate all of that information. You know, this can be a powerful way to also inform your corporate risk assessment. And you tap into that knowledge, into that capability. People want to not just absorb and learn. Yes, they do want that. They also want tools from you. They want skills, etc., for their role. But if you give them space to build something, to be creators, to be makers, that will also help make this a positive event. Anyway, with that, okay, we have, thank you, John, you've grouped this. Now we will just do a very quick experience with the dot voting. So the red dots are for fish bowlers. You can, so we have, I think, 4 or 5 dots for each of you. Please, you can move these dots either all into one field or you can distribute them across topics. And the other people on this in this workshop, you can use one of the green dots or you can use multiple green dots. We are not doing this very rigorously methodologically here. This is more tryout. So, but please grab a few dots and put them to some topics that really resonate with you the most strongly. And so just to show how this kind of exercise can help you, what is it, get the pulse in the room, right? What are the things that your participants in the exercise view as particularly useful, relevant? So let's take a minute for that. It would be wonderful if really everyone on this call, you know, gave it a try, just to enrich this activity. And John, maybe you can put the music on for with the timer for 1 minute, just to show that feature in Miro.
All right, we'll go with a sunshine jam. Here we go.
Oh, it's not coming through.
It's not.
I can hear it.
Can you hum it? Can you sing it?
I can hear it. I can hear it.
Yes, none of us can hear it.
If you can see your timer, Ernie,
Okay.
on the Miro board, there's a little mute button that you can hit. Maybe that's already clicked.
Okay, thanks.
And I see some folks have found the reaction button. So again, that's at the top right of your Miro interface. There's a little party hat with some confetti blowing out. If you click that, it will expand down and show you some of the reactions that you can do. And there's lots of different fun stuff you can show us. You're having a good time. Love it. Thank you.
All right, wonderful, great. So this showed another important functionality or feature of Miro, which so we've seen, you know, the what is it called, the diverging mode of Miro, where you just pull out, you multiply the ideas, you just fill a big canvas with lots of ideas. And then there is usually in a design, you know, in these various design phases, there is a converging movement. It's where you group things, you use an affinity map maybe, you cluster similar topics, and then you can use things like dot voting to also see, you know, what has the greatest appeal, or what seems the most feasible, or what has the highest impact, depends on the questions you're asking, but you can use dot voting to get answers from the room on a variety of questions. Okay, this is the end of our design challenge. We have a few more things up our sleeves for you. Maybe another, let's hear it again from the fish bowlers. Any quick thoughts right now? Before we move to the conclusion part, and that Ernie will walk us through that.
Carsten, I'll just say again, what blows me away is the efficiency of this. This could take months to do, to get to this stage. And look, take us minutes really to get this much input, to get close to making decisions, to have an idea. I've got checklists now in my mind. I've got an agenda in my mind. It's fabulous.
And it's fun. I think this is really fun.
Keep fun, fast. It's versatile. It's easy. It's really powerful.
One of my favorite quotes is change doesn't take time, it takes commitment. And it's amazing how much you can accomplish in a short period of time. And that's actually part of this whole innovation and design approach, is that you want to have compressed time. You want people to be focused. There's plenty of time to prototype and to test later, but it's good to have some time constraints and limitations.
And this space gives us all a single source of our truth to work on. There's not multiple versions. We don't have to send a copy for comments from 50 people and then get through all that. It's all happening live, synchronously and asynchronously. People are drawing pictures, people are having fun, but we're coming up with great ideas. We're picking direction that the group is agreeing on. It's amazing.
So why don't we turn it over to Tom and let him kind of lead us all through some Q&A.
Yeah, Ernie, let me, if I could, see if I can translate this into a little compliance speak, because I think that's important as well. I spoke about the engagement as leading to effectiveness, but now I'd like to tie it to more directly what the Department of Justice has told us in the update to the evaluation of corporate compliance programs. One of the key themes from that document released in June 2020 was that risk assessments need to be done as your risks change. And it struck me in being walked through this process and listening to John and Karsten that this could stand in for a risk assessment. I understand it may look different, it may feel different, it may even be monikered different, but this is essentially risks and strategies and material ideas and concepts that are important to the stakeholders who are involved. And so that to me fits under the wide penumbra of a risk assessment. Now take the next two steps from the Department of Justice: risk assessment leading to continuous monitoring, leading to continuous improvement. Continuous monitoring, here we are putting a hypothesis forward. We're preliminarily testing that hypothesis. We're going to continue to have input around that hypothesis, and we can improve that hypothesis after we've made it our truth, and then through continuous improvement. So if you're ever in the position where the regulators come knocking and they say, what have you done to assess your risks? And here we have it around an ambassadors conference, and we have it documented. And I'm going to say it. What are the three most important things in every compliance program? Document, document, document. Well, now you've documented your full process, and you can document the steps you took. You can document the inputs you took. You can document the upgrades or improvements you made, and on a continuous basis. So it strikes me this is another way for you to demonstrate through documented evidence that you're following what the general requirements that the regulators have set out, even if it looks and feels something very different than this. So it's a way for you, and obviously the numerous comments and party hats we saw with thumbs up that people are having fun. So we've added in a level of fun, which you may not get too often from certainly the legal department or a lawyer, but from compliance as well. So we've got that. And then, of course, we've got what Carson has reminded us to think about seriously, which is engagement leading to effectiveness. So I see this as a very powerful tool. It's one that we perhaps haven't thought of before, but if we start thinking along these lines, and bringing in other stakeholders, we can get new ideas, we can test those ideas, and we can incorporate those ideas into our overall program going forward in a documented way that's going to satisfy the regulators, or if the board of directors or outside investors want to drill down and see what you've done around your compliance program. So I think it can be a very powerful tool. With that, Ernie, are you seeing any questions come in?
Well, I did want to, I'm kind of looking at the chat here, and people feel free to chat in your questions. I did want to mention that at our upcoming Impact Conference, in conjunction with your comments about the DOJ, we're really pleased that we actually are going to have a presentation by Lisa Monaco. And so it'll be really interesting to kind of listen to what she says in the context of innovating in the programs. And so that's coming up in April. So no questions. We want you to pipe in your questions. I would like to make a couple of comments about success factors for this kind of a program. I think that one of the important things is that a lot of people in your organization may not be familiar with this approach. It's good to kind of seek people out who are open to these nonlinear engagement kinds of ideation activities, because you want the right people involved. You don't want to make it required. You don't want to require people to be there who don't want to be there, because they're just going to drain the energy out of the exercise. You also want to make sure that you got the permissions from leadership, that whatever comes out of this, that they're going to support and let you prototype it, let you evolve it. And that some resources are available if necessary. If you need some resources, that they're available to put on a great conference or your idea. It's always important too to I think to lead to success, to tie this back to the strategy of the organization. That's one of the first principles of high quality ethics and compliance program, is that E&C is central to business strategy. And so I think to get leadership support and the organization support to make sure that you are tying this in to the organizational strategy and how to achieve the strategy. And there may be other ideas about success factors. I'd be interested in hearing from people about that, but I did want to make a note of that. See if there are any other questions.
Only just on success factors. I mean, I think the one thing that you've done so effectively today is get us using it. You didn't just tell us about it. You enabled us to see the benefits firsthand and quickly. And I think that's going to be critical, as if I think about how to use it in the way Tom's described at SNAP, that's what I'm going to need to do. Find a way to have people use it, we engage with it, have the fun, and then have the imagination as to how we can leverage it. So very, very helpful. Thank you. Thank you,
Emma. We do have a comment here from Greg. He says people be aware of the session that's going on today and tomorrow, the NYU's PCCE's Assessing Effective Compliance Conference. And I actually listened to that this morning when I should have been preparing for this webinar. But it's really great, because you have to stay plugged in and informed about what's going on in the field to really be able to engage in these kinds of activities to evolve our programs. Let's see what else we have. What other thoughts, Karsten and Tom, do you have about the kinds of topics or opportunities to apply this kind of innovation exercise in organizations?
Yeah, thank you, Ernie, and maybe John, you can take us to some of the screens that are at the end in the conclusion part. One reads, well, let's do the takeaways one. I won't go into great depth. I just want to let people know what's in there that they can look at. So 3 important takeaways that I hope you come away is that, to design engaging solutions, whether it's a code, a training, a website, a reporting system, really put yourself in the shoes of the user. You know, focus on your users, focus on their needs, the problems that they face and want to solve. So think from their perspective. That is very, very powerful in coming up with innovative, engaging, effective solutions. The best way to understand users is to create with them. So co-create with your user. We've talked about that. I think, yeah, our participants, Suzanne, Emma, Alicia, again, thank you. This was incredible. You did so amazing. Leverage technology. Today, it is so much easier than it has ever been to do these kinds of things, to do collaborative design, innovation. There's a little learning curve, but as you've seen, the bump you cannot get over quickly. Now, we can apply this in so many different ways. There are different formats, long and short and focused and comprehensive. You can do a design jam, which is really very compressed in time, can be 40 minutes short only, and you just engage people in a quick ideation to solve a problem. That could be Monday morning's team meeting, no problem at all. That's a good place to start to get everyone familiar and comfortable with the tool. Then you may have a big challenge. You may want to redesign your code or website or training. So you set up a design sprint, which is still focused on one problem, but now you have multiple. You really go through the comprehensive process from problem definition, you know, ideating, brainstorming ideas, prototyping, testing solutions, well-structured, quick progress, very innovative user-centered solutions. Or you can set up a very comprehensive project. Let's say you want to redesign, reboot your entire program, maybe because you're a post-scandal, you're in a monitorship, or you are newly appointed chief compliance officer, and you say, you know what, we're going to give this a fresh paint of code. You can use it for that purpose as well. Or you can use Miro actually to make training highly interactive, highly engaging. So different formats. And there are a variety of use cases on the next slide. I'm not going to go into much detail here. Just please peruse it. The key message being, you have a problem, you can use the methods and the tools we've shared with you to approach these things in a new way. And we believe in a more effective, more engaging way. All right. So there's a little retrospective exercise we can leave there. There's some reading literature in the slide deck that you will see. As I mentioned, Tom's paradigm shifting article urging us to think more about design thinking and compliance. I've written some. Tom and I have had conversation in his great podcast series. There are a few book titles that are really good. If you have your own ideas, there are stickies here. Even after the event, you can stay on this and add some of your recommendations, share them with us. Yeah, and that's really it from my side.
We have a question here from Faye. She says, where are the resources?
Yeah, so at the end, this is already part of the resource section of this presentation. There's also, if you want to learn about Miro, there is Miro. Go to the Miro website. They have an academy. There's a link also here, right there. Thank you, John. Every, I think, Tuesday and Thursday, they put on also a live training session for beginners. Very great experience. I've done it myself. So they have a host of, and there are similar companies offering other things. I personally love Miro the most, but we should mention that this is not the only solution that exists. But Miro puts out a lot of resources for people who want to learn, who want to understand, who want to use this tool more.
And I would say, reach out in your organizations. There are probably people in your organizations who are using these tools, particularly in research and development. Tom?
Ernie? Yeah, if I could just add, if it's not clear to everyone on this Zoom call, pick up the phone and call Karsten or email him. He really has taken a deep dive into this. He knows this well. He obviously knows the compliance angle as well. So if you're interested at all, I would just urge you to give Karsten a shout. He's incredibly giving back to our community, and he's more than happy to visit with you on this topic.
Yeah, I think Karsten has, thank you so much, Tom. Karsten has been a real pioneer in the application of this. And if you do nothing else, get on LinkedIn with him because he shares a lot of information on that, and I think in line with that, find people who this resonates with. Establish your own little kind of user community. Discover this together, and by all means, don't make it a program. The value and the power is it's all organic, and if you get the right people involved, it will seed out in the organization and be transformational in many ways. And so just be a good steward of the space. Well, I think that we have probably reached the end of our program. It's been an incredibly valuable 90 minutes. It's hard to believe that this has been 90 minutes. And I want to thank Karsten. Certainly, you put in the lion's share of pulling all of this together, and a lot of hours. Hema, it's wonderful to have you here, and the work that you're doing at Snapchat, they are so lucky to have you. And Suzanne, you've been a transformational agent in our practice for many years, and it's wonderful to have you here, and we appreciate your input and participation. Also, Alicia. Alicia from Dell, never met an idea that she didn't like, and it's great to have you. Alicia, you always add a lot of fun and energy to every event. And John, boy, what a great teacher you are. Thank you so much for being a guide for us through this territory, and making it a lot more friendly in terms of online virtual collaborative tools, which are particularly appropriate during this time of remote and hybrid work. It shows that should not be an obstacle, that we can still use these tools. And of course, Tom Fox. It's hard to describe you, Tom. You are a force of nature, and to have you interested in these design innovation principles and applying them to our practice is just an incredible value to our profession. And then lastly, I would like to thank all of you for participating and being so engaged in being here. And I'd like to remind you that there is a link to our Impact Conference. It's going to be in April. I mentioned to you we're going to have Lisa Monaco from the DOJ, and we'll also have the SEC there, and a lot of really interesting and timely sessions. And so with that, thanks to all. And I wish you a good day, and I hope to see you in an innovation session somewhere near you.